Now let's also dive into the remaining piece, and that is of course storing recipes on a server. And for that, I want to add a new effect, store recipes, which also gets the add effect decorator. And here we again listen to our actions observable stream and use of type to react only to certain types of actions. And we need to add a new action for this, and that will be our store recipes action, which gets this identifier here, store recipes, like this. Let's export a class here as well, store recipes, which implements action. This has a read-only type of store recipes. And we don't need to pass the recipes along because they're already part of our NGRX store. Now I'll add this to the union type, even though we're not going to use this action in a reducer, but we are going to use it here in recipe effects. So here, let's now wait for recipes, actions, store recipes. And thereafter, I'll add a good old switch map here, as we did before too. Not interested in any data about my action because it doesn't have a payload, which I would need. Indeed, what I want to do here, though, is I want to run the code which we currently run in here, in store recipes in the data storage service. Let's grab that and add it here to switch map, return this here, and run our put request here. Now the thing is, of course, there I now need my recipes, which are in my store. That is the question. How do we get the recipes from the store? Well, the good thing is, it's relatively easy. We can use a special operator with latest from, which is also imported from RxJS operators. And that allows us to merge a value from another observable into this observable stream here. And there I now want to access my store, which means I have to inject it here. So my store is injected. For that, I want to import the structure of the store from my root reducer. So from app, from store app reducer, and assign that generic type down there from app state like this. And now with the store injected, we also need to import it. Import wasn't added automatically here, so let's do it manually. Let's import store from @ngrx store. So now with the store injected successfully, here on with latest from, we can use this store, select the recipes slice, and in switch map, we now actually get an array as an argument. Automatically, RxJS gives us this array, which holds the data provided by of type, which is our action data, which I'm not interested about, but also the data from with latest from, and that will be our recipes state. Now that gets passed into our function here. Now I'm using a syntax called array destructuring here, in case you're wondering. This simply means that I use square brackets here in the argument list, and I store the two elements that this array will have in variables that I can now use inside of switch map. Of course, you could also accept one argument because you get one argument after all, but that argument is an array where the second element is the data from with latest from, and the first element is your action. And I'm just using array destructuring. With that, I have access to my recipes state, and on my recipes state, I can access the recipes, of course. That should already be it. This allows us to send that request. Here, I'm also not really interested in dispatching anything thereafter because I don't need to know once this is done in this application. So we can set dispatch to false here so that NGRX effects knows that this won't dispatch anything. And now we can go to the header component again. And in the header component, in onSave data, we can now use this store dispatch new recipe actions. And there I have my store recipes action. With that, we can also remove the data storage and the auth service from this file, remove their imports here, and remove the entire data storage service file. We don't need that anymore. Let's save all files now. And let's give this a try. The app reloads. Let's go to recipes here. Let's maybe edit this recipe, and let's edit the schnitzel as well, adding a couple of exclamation marks each, and then hit save data. And now let's try reloading, and the changes are still there, which means they were saved on the backend. And that is it. That now means that our entire logic was restructured such that we indeed use NGRX only in this application. With all these changes made, we can now also get rid of the recipe service here. And that means that in the app module, in the core module, we no longer need and can provide it. So we can clean that up as well. And I'm getting an error about my recipe detail component. The recipe detail component still imports it and still injects it, and still uses it here in on add to shopping list. And that is now the remaining thing where I don't want to use the recipe service anymore because I deleted it anyways. Instead, the idea is now to import my shopping list actions as shopping list actions from, and now I go to the shopping list area of this application, to the store there, and then to the shopping list actions file, because there we do have an action for adding all ingredients, right? So in here, we can now use the store, dispatch, and dispatch a new shopping list action, and that would be the add ingredients action, which takes the ingredients as a payload, and that would be the this recipe ingredients data which I want to add. And with that, we fixed that. Now in the recipe edit component, there I'm also still importing the recipe service because I'm still injecting it, but we don't need it there anymore. So here we can just remove it. With that, everything compiled successfully, and if we reload, that looks good. Let's try adding these items to the shopping list. This also works. And now we did some cleanup work and we're entirely in the NGRX world. This was a super large module, and we had a thorough look at NGRX. Now, as you can tell, NGRX can be complex. Setting it up can be quite a lot of work. But as you hopefully also saw, as soon as it's set up, adding more actions, handling them with effects and so on, is really streamlined, and you have a clear plan on how you handle things. Asynchronous code and any side effects in the effects file. State changes in the reducer file. And you hopefully also see how all these pieces come together and give you one global store in your application that you can use anywhere to access any data and dispatch any event. Now again, if you prefer services and subjects, that is absolutely fine. You don't have to use NGRX if you don't want to. But it can be a decent alternative to services and subjects in bigger applications. The bigger your app grows and the more people are working on it, a streamlined approach like this can be really helpful. Now, I also want to point you at ngrx.io, which is the official webpage of the NGRX project. And there in the documentation, you can learn way more about NGRX and also about advanced features of NGRX, because we actually only scratched the surface here. Also search for GitHub NGRX and check out that NGRX/platform repository. And in there, you'll find a projects folder with example apps. And this example app here combines a lot of the advanced and best practice features and patterns you can find for NGRX. So checking out this application also is a great next step if you want to learn more about NGRX. Well, and with that, you got all the tools to build powerful Angular applications, either with services and subjects, or with NGRX for a streamlined, highly structured state management solution. In this course section here, we're going to explore Angular Universal, and you will learn what exactly Angular Universal is, why it matters, why it might be interesting for you, and you will learn how you could convert an Angular app, any Angular app, to a universal app, and along the way you will learn about some important gotchas and features of such Angular Universal apps.